Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova, Boker Tov, Manishma, whatever greeting you would like. Shalom Aleichem. So I just published on Chitzonim on my blog. You can find where links are. I just published some commentary on Genesis 21 and 22. We read Genesis 21 and 22 respectively on days 1 and 2 of Rosh Hashana. And it's day 2 of Rosh Hashana today. We celebrate for 2 days because, back in the day, you had to declare when the new moon appeared. And you might have differing accounts from differing witnesses. And so you got to do Rosh Hashana for 2 days just to make sure whichever day was the actual new moon that we get it right. So that's kind of some of the lore behind Rosh Hashana and 2 days of celebration. But we read Genesis 21 and 22 on days 1 and 2 because in Genesis 21, God remembers Sarah. Sarah's advanced in age and wants to have a child but hasn't. But God remembers Sarah and she gives birth to Isaac. And during these days of atonement, these days of awe, these high holidays between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we want God to remember us. So that's the rabbinic lore around, got a couple of days of Rosh Hashanah, and that's why we read Genesis 21 and 22. But you all know what I do. I try to read Torah through a source-critical lens. Particularly through the documentary hypothesis. What we have in Genesis 21 and 22, but in 21 in particular is what I really focus on within my blog, my Parsha commentary about this, is that this is a tradition from the E source with a little bit of J sprinkled in. Now, we know that, or at least we think we know that, or we have some explanation for this, mostly because of Ishmael, who is the son of Hagar, who is, to be candid, an enslaved Egyptian woman to Abraham and to Sarah. So you have Isaac, the son of Abraham and Sarah, and you have Ishmael, the son of Hagar and Abraham. And Ishmael's age seems to fluctuate a little bit in the account here. At one point, it says that Hagar was able to place Ishmael under a bush. But at another place, it says that Ishmael is already 13 years old at the time of Isaac's circumcision, and then Ishmael is mentioned again at the time of Isaac's weaning. So if we imagine a child would wean from the mother at about age 3 or so, then that would mean that Ishmael would be around 16 in the narrative, in the story. But how would it be the case that Hagar could place a 16-year-old Ishmael under a bush? It's got to be a giant bush, right, for a 16-year-old to fit beneath it. And so we have a kind of a competing accounts, an age inconsistency here with one of the characters in the story. Now that signals to us that there was probably some editorial work at play. And so the conclusion from source criticism is that you have a J narrative and you have an E narrative. And as the Torah reaches a final form, these J and E accounts are brought together in some way. So you have an Ishmael who is 3 at one point in time, 13 at another point in time, when actually Ishmael would be 16 years old at the time when they should be 13 or they should be a smaller child. Do you see what's going on here? If that sounded interesting to you, then you would like what I wrote about with Genesis 21 and 22. There's also the binding of Isaac, or Abraham is instructed to sacrifice Isaac. And so that's a thing that's in Genesis chapter 22. Also part of this E narrative. So that I addressed that a little bit, but I spend more time with Ishmael and Genesis 21. So anyway, it's Rosh Hashanah, day 2. So Shana Tova. And also it's Friday. So Shabbat Shalom. And if neither of those things are applicable to you, then just happy Friday. I just love hanging out with y'all. So, man, have a great day. And read Torah if you want to, through an academic, secular, humanist, source critical lens, which is what I do. All right. Peace out. Later.